So you listed your home in Atlanta, and now you have multiple offers. Cute problem, right? But before you start celebrating, popping bottles, and picking the highest number like you're choosing the biggest plate at brunch, let me stop you right there. Because the highest offer is not always the best offer. And choosing the wrong one can cost you money, time, peace, and possibly the entire deal. So today I'm breaking down exactly what to do when you get multiple offers on your Atlanta home. Hey, I'm Christa Coore-Powell, Atlanta Realtor with eXp Realty, and I help Atlanta homeowners sell smart, move strategically, and not get played by pretty numbers on paper. Multiple offers can feel really exciting, and they can also get really messy real fast, especially here in Atlanta where every neighborhood, price point, and buyer situation can behave a little bit differently. A home in East Atlanta, West End, College Park, or Smyrna may not all attract the same type of buyer. Your job is not just to pick an offer. Your job is to pick the offer that is most likely to close and get you the best outcome. So let's get into it. Don't get distracted by price. When sellers see multiple offers, the first thing they usually ask is, which one is the highest? And listen, I get it. We all like money. But the sales price is only one part of the offer, because you also need to look at terms, because a buyer can offer you $20,000 over asking and still be the riskiest person in the pile. You want to look at the purchase price, the earnest money, the due diligence period, the financing terms, the appraisal contingency, the closing date, any seller concessions, and whether the buyer has a home to sell first. These are things that tell you whether the offer is strong or just loud. In the seller process, offer terms like price, earnest money, due diligence, financing contingencies, appraisal contingency, and closing date are all major factors to review before choosing a buyer. Understand the buyer's risk level. Here's something people don't always talk about. Every offer has risk. Some buyers look amazing on paper, but once you get into inspections, financing, or appraisal, things can start getting real wobbly like a folding table at a cookout. And when I'm reviewing offers with a seller, I'm asking questions like, is this buyer fully pre-approved or just casually pre-qualified? Are they putting down a strong amount of earnest money? That really shows how engaged are they in this process. Are they asking for a really long due diligence period? Are there any waiving or limiting contingencies? Are they likely to ask for repairs later? Do they need closing cost help? Could the appraisal become an issue? Are they flexible on the closing date? And most importantly, how likely are they to actually make it to the closing table? Because an offer is not a check, it's a promise. And we need to understand how strong that promise is. So in the state of Georgia, due diligence is a big deal. During that time, a buyer can inspect the home, ask for repairs, renegotiate, or full out terminate for almost any reason and typically keep their earnest money. So when you're comparing offers, a shorter due diligence period is usually stronger. That's going to be more aggressive, right? Because they're showing, one, they're willing to move quickly and they're willing to make a decision pretty quickly. So you're not sort of in this gray area for too long. A buyer asking for 3 to 5 days is more serious than a buyer asking for 12 to 14 days. To be honest, 12 to 14 days would give me pause on an offer, even if it's significantly over asking. Now, that does not mean that you're automatically going to reject a buyer to a longer now, that doesn't mean you automatically reject a buyer due to a longer due diligence period, but it does mean you really do need to understand what they're asking for. So, for example, a buyer is relocating, they may need extra time for their own inspections. They may be nervous, or maybe they're trying to keep one foot in, one foot out. And as the seller, it's important for you to know the difference. And that's my job, to help you understand what questions to ask. So it's also really important to watch the financing, because the financing matters. A cash offer can be really attractive because there's usually a lot less lender risk, but not all cash offers are automatically better. Some cash buyers come in super low, ask for heavy discounts, or try to negotiate after inspection, because since they're doing a cash offer, it kind of changes the way that they make that offer. On the other hand, a finance buyer may offer more money and have a On the other hand, a finance buyer can offer more money and may have a strong chance of approval. So you want to compare cash versus conventional loan, FHA or VA financing, down payment amount, lender reputation, proof of funds, loan approval status, financing contingency timelines, and whether the lender can actually perform. This is where having an agent who knows how to call a lender, ask the right questions, and read between the lines really matters, because pre-approved can mean different things depending on who wrote that letter. Do not ignore the appraisal. This is where multiple offers can get really spicy. So let's say your home's listed at 425 and you get an offer for 450. Sounds awesome, right? Amazing. But if the home appraises for 425 and the buyer does not have appraisal, but if the home appraises for 425 and the buyer does not have some form of appraisal gap coverage, we have a problem. Either the buyer has to bring extra cash, 25K, or you have to lower the price or the deal could fall apart. So when reviewing an above asking offer, you want to ask, is there an appraisal contingency? Is the buyer willing to cover an appraisal gap? How much cash do they have? Is the offer price supported by recent comps? Because an offer $25,000 over asking can only be helpful if it can actually be accomplished, if you can actually close. Otherwise, it's just an expensive looking drama. And we don't need drama. We need a closing. So the next thing that matters is your timeline. Your timeline matters too. A lot of sellers focus only on price, but your timeline is part of the negotiation. Do you need to close quickly? Do you need time to find your next home? Do you want a temporary lease back? Are you relocating? Are you buying new construction and you need to wait on the builder? Are you trying to avoid having to move twice? All of this obviously matters, because for move-up sellers especially, timing can be one of the biggest stress points. Some sellers may use strategies like bridge loans, contingent offers, or leaseback agreements to make the sale purchase line. For move-up sellers, timing can be one of the biggest stress points. Some sellers may use strategies like bridge loans, contingency offers, or leaseback agreements to make the sale and purchase line up together. So the best offer may not be the highest. It may be the best one that gives you the combination of the right price, the cleanest terms, and enough time to move without losing your mind. Because if you have to sell your house, pack up, buy another house, coordinate movers, schedule utilities, and keep your children, pets, and hopefully your sanity intact, we need a plan, not just a great price. So the question always comes up when we get an offer: should you counter or call for highest and best? Both are interesting strategies, and we have a few options, right? You can accept the strongest offer as is. You can counter offer, you can counter multiple offers, or you can ask all buyers for their best and highest by a specific deadline. Highest and best can work well when there's a strong demand and you want everyone to sharpen their pencil. But it has to be handled really carefully, because sometimes buyers will get annoyed even at the proposal and walk away. So you have to think about that too. But also sometimes they may improve the price and keep weak terms. Sometimes the strongest buyer was already strong and pushing too hard can create unnecessary risk. So the strategy is really dependent on your situation. How close are they? How motivated are the buyers? How long has your home been on the market? Are you seeing serious buyers or just people throwing spaghetti at the wall? This is why multiple offers it's not just about excitement. It's always about strategy. So it's important that we look at the whole package. And here's how I like to think about it. The best offer always has a balance of 4 things: strong price, clean terms, low risk, and good timing. If an offer gives you all 4, that is beautiful. If not, we compare the trade-offs. So maybe one buyer is offering more money but needs a longer closing. Maybe another buyer is slightly less but has stronger financing. Maybe one buyer is cash but wants a big discount. Maybe another buyer needs a loan but is willing to waive certain contingencies. The goal is not to be dazzled. The goal is to be informed, because when you choose the right offer, you're protecting your equity and your next move. So, pro tip: get a backup offer when possible. If you have multiple offers, you're not going to completely ignore the second best buyer. If the first deal falls apart, you may be able to keep that backup offer in place. That way, you're not starting again from zero if buyer number 1 gets cold feet, if there are financing issues, or if they start acting brand new after the inspection. Backup offers can offer you leverage and peace of mind. And in Georgia, where due diligence can give buyers quite a bit of flexibility, Having a backup offer is just a smart move. And in Georgia, where due diligence can give buyers quite a bit of flexibility, having a backup offer can be a really smart move. So when you get multiple offers, the mindset really matters. It's easy to feel like you're in control, and you may be, but you still want to move carefully. You should never take negotiations personally, and don't get defensive, and do not let your emotions pick the buyer. The goal is to make the strongest business decision for your home, your money, and whatever your next chapter may be. So one of my biggest seller tips is for you to stay businesslike and professional during negotiations instead of getting defensive or personal. Because the person who writes the prettiest love letter may not be the buyer who gets you to closing. And the buyer with the highest price may not be the buyer with the strongest terms. We're not dating these buyers. We are evaluating them. And that's a big difference. So if you get multiple offers on your Atlanta home, here's what I want you to remember. Don't chase the highest price. Compare the full terms. Look very closely at the financing, pay attention to the due diligence, understand your appraisal risk, protect your timeline, and choose the offer most likely to get you to the closing table with the best outcome. Multiple offers are for sure a blessing, but only if you know how to handle them. So if you're thinking about selling your home in Atlanta and want to know how to best position it to attract strong offers, not just random offers, let's talk. I'll help you look at your numbers, your timeline, and your options, and your next move. You can call or text me at email support@propertyprokrista.com or book a free seller strategy session. And make sure you subscribe to Atlanta Real Estate Insider for more real talk about buying, selling, and living in Atlanta. Because around here, we do strategy, not stress. Thanks for watching.